Welcome to the Explainer. You know that feeling when someone wrongs you? Maybe they break something of yours or they're careless and you get hurt, and you just think to yourself, hey, that's not right. There has to be some way to fix this. Well, that gut feeling, that sense of justice, it's actually at the heart of a huge legal concept we're going to dive into today. What you're feeling in that moment is what the legal world calls a civil wrong. Now, I know that sounds super formal, right? But it's actually the perfect way to describe a situation where one person's actions harm another, but it's not necessarily a crime. It's something else, and it still needs a resolution. So, as you might guess, the law has a specific, and let's be honest, a kind of weird-sounding name for this type of civil wrong. So in this explainer, we are going to unpack that exact term. And that word is a tort. Yep, T-O-R-T. It might be the first time you're hearing it, but trust me, it's a massive deal in civil law. So to really get what it means, let's just look at the official, by-the-book definition. Whoa, okay, that is a mouthful of legalese. I'm seeing words like omissions, tortfeasor. It definitely sounds a little intimidating. But don't you worry, we're going to break this whole thing down piece by piece so it makes total sense. Let's start with the very first part. All right, first things first, the action. For anything to be a tort, it has to start with some kind of wrongful behavior. But what exactly does the law mean when it says wrongful? Okay, let's zoom in on this part of the definition. See how it says acts or omissions? That is so important because it means the wrong can be something you actively did, or it can be something you were supposed to do but you didn't. This really shows you the two sides of the same coin. A tort could be an act, like texting while driving and causing a crash. But it can also be an omission, like a building owner who fails to salt an icy sidewalk and someone slips and gets hurt. Either way, the behavior isn't allowed by law and it steps on someone else's rights. So you have a wrongful action. Got it. But, and this is a big but, that's not the whole story. For a tort to actually exist, that action has to lead to a bad outcome. There has to be a consequence. Let's see what the definition says about that. And here we go, the next key piece of the puzzle. The wrongful behavior has to cause something. It's all about that chain reaction, that direct link between the action and the consequence. If you do something wrong, but luckily no harm comes from it, well, it's not a tort. And the law is pretty specific about these consequences. We're talking about loss, damage, or injury. So, for instance, if someone's carelessness makes you miss a day of work, that's a financial loss. If they dent your car door, that's damage. You get the idea. Without one of these real-world results, you don't have a tort. Okay, so we've got a wrongful act, check. And we have resulting harm, check. So who are the players in this little drama? The law actually has special names for the person who does the wrong thing and the person who gets hurt by it. And look at that, our definition gives us the vocabulary. The person who commits the wrong, they're called the tortfeasor. Kind of sounds like a villain, right? And what they do is give the person they harmed a cause of action, which is just a fancy legal term for the right to sue. So let's line it up. On one side, you have the tortfeasor, the one who did the wrongful act. On the other, you have the wronged party. And that cause of action is the whole point. It's basically the legal green light, the key that unlocks the courthouse door, allowing the wronged person to take the tortfeasor to civil court to make things right. We've taken this big definition and broken it into its core parts: the act, the harm, and the parties involved. So now, let's snap all those pieces back together and see how it works as a simple three-step process. This is it, the whole anatomy of a tort. It's really just a chain reaction. Step 1, a wrongful act happens. Step 2, because of that act, someone else suffers harm. And step 3, the result. The person who was harmed now has a legal path forward, that cause of action, to hold the tortfeasor accountable. See? Each step flows right into the next. So here's the bottom line. When you boil it all down, a tort is simply a civil wrong that the legal system recognizes. And because it's recognized, it gives the person who is harmed the power to actually do something about it. It's all about accountability and finding a solution. So there you have it. Now you know what a tort is. But this probably sparks a new question, right? A wrongful act that causes harm? Wait a second. Doesn't that sound an awful lot like a crime? Well, sometimes they can overlap, but they are fundamentally different things in the eyes of the law. And that's definitely a question to think about. Thanks for joining us for this explainer.